Welcome to another episode of Two Bald Guys, where today we'll be discussing revitalizing news media through student journalism. My name is Eric Giordano, and I am the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy and Service, otherwise known as WIPPS.
And good afternoon. I'm Dave Anderson, a Senior Policy Fellow at WIPPS. For those of you who may not be familiar with WIPPS, we're a unit of the University of Wisconsin system, founded in 2007 with a mission to educate and engage citizens, develop future leaders, and bring the resources of the university to address community-identified needs.
You know, Dave, it almost goes without saying that you and I feel compelled to share our enormous planet-sized heads with the world. And of course, massive head size equals massive brain size. But honestly, Dave, right. So I just want to remind our two viewers about that. But, you know, honestly, I look at the news every day, this week in particular, and, it can be disheartening at times to see how everything has become hyper politicized, hyper polarized. And we just want our viewers to know that we recognize the challenges of our current time. And we purposely do this show to add a little humor via some incredibly well-researched hair puns, along with some thoughtful ideas to hopefully make your Friday lunch hour a little bit more bright. So let us know how we're doing by sending your feedback to info@wipps.org. That's info@wipps.org. Dave?
That's absolutely right, Eric. And you just reminded me, I was really sorry to hear about that last comedy show that you went to. I heard about this talking to some of our WIPPS staff members this last week.
What was that comedy show? I don't remember.
Well, I heard you walked into this comedy show a little late, and when the comedian saw you trying to find a seat, he called out to you and said, "Hey, look at that guy. He's worked on his hair all afternoon to get ready for tonight's show, and then he forgot it at home."
Oh my gosh. Was that well researched?
That was definitely well researched.
All right. Okay. Well, Dave, just remember that the road to hell is shaved with good intentions and bad hair puns. So keep that in mind as you do your research next time.
And once again, Eric, you are absolutely right. But hey, before we get to our three outstanding guests today, I'd like to acknowledge one of our two loyal viewers, and that would be Luke Rudolph, who we pay to be our token representative of an attractive younger demographic. Luke, we understand that there was some breaking news this week regarding our friend and frequent Two Bald Guys guest, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. What happened?
That's right, my bald friends. Apparently, there was a power outage in Dwayne's neighborhood this week. As The Rock was attempting to leave his driveway, the wrought iron gate wouldn't open. So he got out of his car, tore the gate out of the brick wall, severed the steel hydraulics, and threw it on the grass. He posted a video of the aftermath on Instagram and said that he didn't want to wait 45 minutes for a technician to open the gate because he had to get to the set of his movie shoot with Ryan Reynolds. "Not my finest hour," said The Rock, "but a man's got to get to work." And I know, gentlemen, you two have done this numerous times when you've been late to your movie shoots with Ryan Reynolds. So I know you really can identify with The Rock.
Actually, that kind of confirms a study. And this is true. I know our viewers might not believe this, but in 2012, there was a study that came out that showed not only that bald men were more attractive in general to women, but in addition, they were 12% stronger than the average man. So we've had that problem, Dave and I as well. But thanks for sharing that incredibly timely news story, Luke. And really the work ethic of our dear friend, The Rock, is truly commendable. And I just can't wait to talk with him later on in our show today. He'll be one of our guests as well. So we're excited about that.
Well, with that, it's time to get to our fantastic guests who will be discussing a new high school journalism program in Wisconsin. As a reminder, during the live show, viewers can make comments or pose questions to our guests via the Facebook chat section. And for those that watch the show later, you can always send us comments and feedback at info@wipps.org. So first, I'd like to introduce my long friend, and we're also fellow Rotarians, Roger Utnehmer, whose career has spanned over 35 years in radio broadcasting as a general manager and radio station owner. He was inducted into the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association Hall of Fame in 2012 Roger created a student journalism program in Door County years ago and has recently been revitalizing and expanding the program to other parts of Wisconsin. So welcome to the show, Roger. We're glad to have you here.
Great to be here, Dave. Thank you.
One of Roger's early student journalists is also here to share with us his experience. Matt Olson. Matt, maybe you could just take a minute and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dave, for the greetings and introduction. So I grew up in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, and had the wonderful opportunity to work with Roger, about 10 years ago, as the first student news journalist with DorkCountyDailyNews.com. And it really set up the platform for me to go on into a career in marketing and advertising and communications. I currently work as an account executive with a public relations and marketing firm based in Heartland, Wisconsin. We work exclusively in food and agriculture, and I really do thank Roger for the opportunity to get an introduction into the communication industry to be able to do that.
Well, fantastic, Matt, and welcome once again to the show. And finally, we're very excited to welcome a current student journalist to our program today, Julia. And Julia, we're looking forward to asking you a few questions about your current experiences. So welcome, Julia, to the show, and we're glad to have you on board. With that, Roger, I'm going to direct the first question to you. As the former owner of Door County Daily News and multiple radio stations, you've been in the news business for decades. To set a little context for our show today, tell us a little bit about the state of news media in Wisconsin and our country currently, and how has this been changing over a period of time?
Well, the news reporting, journalism in Wisconsin may not be on life support yet, but I think for some significant factors, it is approaching being on life support. I think that our democracy and reporting in small towns throughout Wisconsin are impacted negatively by the churlish and often coarse rhetoric and the lack of civility and civic discourse. And that is exacerbated and compounded by a growing apathy and lack of interest in local government that is caused by two changes in the newspaper industry and radio broadcasting. The newspaper industry has seen a significant number of papers close throughout the state of Wisconsin. And those that survive have seen significant reductions in their circulation and certainly their ad revenue, which has a direct impact in the number of reporters that are covering local government. The radio industry has seen consolidation. When I got in this industry 42 years ago, a broadcaster was limited to one AM and FM station per market, and no more than 7 of either one in totality. Deregulation of the industry caused that to go away, with massive consolidation resulting in the accumulation of debt and impractical debt service requirements that have resulted in a number of major companies being formed in the industry that are either in or teetering on bankruptcy. That creates an environment where a news reporter is an expendable expense and is often one of the first staff members of a broadcast property to be cut back. In Wausau, there were 3 different owners competing for news just a number of years ago. And that meant 3 different reporters trying to do the best job possible at county board, city council, and school board meetings. And the competition did result in better government. Harvard University, the Neiman Lab at Harvard released a study in April of last year in which they cited the diminishing role of people in local politics when a newspaper closes. And their research indicates that a declining circulation or the closing of a paper results in statistically fewer people running for public office. It results in more corruption. It results in more straight ticket voting, which means more partisanship. And it also results in a less positive feeling from a constituency and enthusiasm with elected officials. So I endorse and embrace the student journalism program because I believe that it can address the problem of the lack of civility in our civic discourse specifically, and also restore vitality to newsrooms that seem to be threatened in both the newspaper and the commercial broadcast industries. Now, dramatic change in broadcasting because of the consolidation and the deregulation that took place in the early to mid 90s, and the decline of newspapers that we've seen in the last 10 years has changed the face of local reporting. Presents an opportunity and presents a challenge that I believe WIPPS is absolutely providing a stellar service to improve.
Thanks, Roger.
That's fascinating, Roger. Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned a little bit about why you thought the student journalism program was important, but you started this with DoorCountyDailyNews.com about 10 years ago. So why did you start the program back then? And tell us a little bit about how it works in practice.
Well, I started it because I founded an electronic newspaper, DoorCountyDailyNews.com. And I looked at what was happening with declining circulation at newspapers and the challenge of radio becoming relevant to the new emerging younger demographics. And by providing an opportunity for students to have a voice, providing the mechanism for students to become reporters, did a couple things for our first daily electronic newspaper. Number one, it made our news department relevant to a younger demographic that was not finding radio an attractive entertainment medium. And secondly, it provided content. And along with the content provided by student journalism came the circles of influence on various media platforms of every student that we employed. It helped us move into online reporting, the use of video, Instagram, Facebook. It really brought radio news into the 21st century. The most important benefit that I see is that it provided students the opportunity to learn about civility and civics. And it provided students the opportunity to pursue at least a look at careers in journalism. And a number of student reporters have gone on to careers in journalism. It provided the radio stations something that was a competitive advantage, and it allowed DoorCountyDailyNews.com to surpass in circulation the long-standing 100-year-old newspaper that is now owned by Gannett.
Matt, we were talking earlier, and I think you said you were the first student that participated in this program. Is that right? Oh my gosh. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience, and what did the student journalism program at DoorCountyDailyNews.com mean to you?
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave. And so Roger and I started this about 10 years ago. And for me, it was an opportunity to get a little bit of industry experience in high school, kind of like an internship, actually. But the other thing that I acknowledge that it did for me was during that time, Act 10 was a huge thing for the teachers in terms of collective bargaining. And I felt like students had gotten lost in the mix. And so with Roger and the rest of the team at Door County Daily News, we were able to bring student stories to the forefront and be able to showcase the wonderful and amazing things that at the time my peers were doing. And I got to help be a part of telling that story. And for me, that was just an amazing opportunity as I look at where my career path has taken me to have that experience early on in life and in being comfortable in public speaking and being able to pull together a thought and share it with folks, but also in helping to showcase some of those good stories that are happening in our communities that sometimes get lost in the mix.
Thanks, Matt. Along those lines, I mean, I think we heard you say earlier that you were doing this for about 3 years of your high school career. That's quite a long time. And I don't know how many stories you ended up writing, but are there any stories that you, besides Act 10, that you remember that maybe, you thought were interesting or you just enjoyed doing? Tell us about a couple of stories that you remember writing about.
Absolutely. So, early on, one of the things that I was excited about and then still passionate about is FFA, or the Future Farmers of America, as they're formerly known, and being able to help highlight the activities that the students were doing during their National FFA Week, which is just a week that they celebrate agriculture and the broad, encompassing nature that agriculture has become, and being able to showcase those stories and help to connect with the community in ways that the community could be engaged in celebrating agriculture. Southern Door County is a very rural area, and so being able to help folks connect, and particularly the students connect with members of the community was a lot of fun, actually. I guess one other story that I can think of is I got to go to one of the Harry Potter movie premieres as underneath a press pass, and which I never thought that I'd be able to do that, get into a movie premiere on the night of a showing using a press pass, and it gave me an opportunity to interview my peers and just hear what they're thinking, and be able to showcase some of their stories and their passion for Harry Potter, which was just a lot of fun. So I got to learn a lot while having fun doing it too.
Thanks.
What great experiences. Julia, we want to pull you into the conversation here too. So you just recently started as a student journalist. Why did you decide to pursue this and get involved?
Thank you, Dave. First of all, I would like to say thank you to Roger, Eric, and Dave for starting this whole program. I think Matt could agree with me that this is one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. I was brought into the student journalist program when we were listening to the radio and my mom heard this ad about the program. I know for sure that I want to major in journalism or broadcast. I don't know what exactly I want my career choice to be, but this program has really helped me discover that this is my passion and this is what I want to do as a job in my future. So I just want to thank the program for helping me figure that out.
Great. So what kind of stories have you been working on since you started your participation?
So my first ever article was for our local radio station. Mr. Conley helped me put together my first draft and it took off. So I interviewed our school officer, Mr. Officer Shrimp, and it was a neat article because I got students' perspectives about our officer and then his perspective about the students. And you could just see that there was a lot of love in between the officer and his students. And that's a really cool relationship to have.
Cool. Well, and it goes without saying that this program wouldn't be successful without the participation of local companies. We appreciate WSAU Radio participating in the program and the Wausau Daily Herald and other news media outlets as well. It's wonderful.
Matt and Julia, both of you, obviously, Matt, earlier in your life as a student, you got involved in this program, and you sound like you were, and Julia, you absolutely sound like you're a consumer of news, and Matt, I'm sure you were a consumer of news even back at that age. So has the experience with your student journalism experience changed in any way how you think about consuming news in your lives?
I can jump in first, and I'd start off by saying that it absolutely has. It's helped me to recognize that there's a need for the positive news stories and conversation about what's happening in our local communities and how that's so incredibly important. A lot of our news is overrun by what's happening at the national and international level, and that's important too. But to know what's happening on next door with your neighbors is so important. And so I've looked to local news to help me understand what's going on in my community. And I really do credit the program with helping me to recognize that. It's just been a wonderful blessing to be able to do that. Long term, what it's done is it's set me up for a career in public speaking and marketing and advertising. And so now I look for ways to help journalists and reporters find those stories that are important to their beat and to their communities. And I've really enjoyed that too.
Thanks. Any thoughts, Julia?
I completely agree with Matt. The local part of it is obviously super important. I think our generation kind of soaks up all the negatives and all these fake news, and we're kind of unaware of how much is real and how much isn't. And being a part of this program really makes me realize that there needs to be a more serious source of information that our generation should be intaking, rather than talking about celebrities every single day.
Yeah, I appreciate. Thank you for both for sharing that. And I'm just occurred to me as I was listening that it's a lot harder to fake news, quote unquote, at the local level, right? I mean, assuming that there is news. Roger, I mean, you've been a broadcast radio owner and manager for years and really focused on local news. And you talked about this a little bit at the top of the hour, but tell us a little bit about, the importance of having news at the local level that actually people can rely on.
Well, one important thought that was significant as I spent 42 years in broadcast ownership was that we're blessed and very fortunate to have this ability to own a mechanism to communicate to the masses of people. We are charged with making people not only better consumers, but I felt almost a moral imperative to use the opportunity of owning radio stations to make people better citizens and not just consumers of advertised products. And I believe that informing people will stimulate activity and interest and result in action that will make our government better and more responsive and more efficient and more honest. It's a fundamental responsibility to also recognize that I believe local news and local sports is the last bastion of small community pride in the state of Wisconsin. And if newspapers and radio stations, commercial stations can afford to pay for the content, the viewers and the listeners will follow. There's nothing that makes people more proud than being able to listen to their high school athletic teams on radio and read reports of their successes in a local newspaper. Local news is relevant. It's essential for civility, for civic engagement, and for better citizenship. And I just worry that the financial implication of newspaper declining circulation and broadcast consolidation will result in the bottom line executing what really is an essential component of preserving democracy in America. If student journalists can help us engage in civility and add civility to our civic discourse and prompt participation in local government, it will certainly be a successful program.
So I know we're getting close to the end of our time together here this morning, but I've got a question for all three of you. So if you were talking to a student right now who's sitting right in front of you, they were thinking about getting involved in this program, give us your best pitch. Why should they get involved in the program? What are the benefits for them? Roger, we'll go to you first, Julia second, and we'll close with Matt.
Number one, it's an opportunity to make money. Most importantly, though, it is the opportunity to create a point of differentiation when you apply for college, for scholarships, and later in your career for employment. Because being able to cite an experience that is so essential to fostering better understanding and participation in democracy will give a student journalist a significant and measurable competitive advantage.
Great. Julia?
Obviously, as writers, we want to talk/write in an unbiased opinion, but it really does give you an opportunity to speak your mind on what you want your local community to think about or talk about. as a small town that's not so small, but still considered small, news kind of spreads fast. I started fostering dogs this summer, and I think almost everyone knew about it within a week, just because everyone eats up small news. It's definitely an opportunity not to share the good parts of your community. I think that's a really cool thing, to allow your community to focus on the good things.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, Roger and Julia both took both of my good answers. So I guess I would say, it's honestly that opportunity to get some practice in and to build a little bit of confidence in yourself as well. And in a critical time when high school students in particular are trying to figure out who they are and what their identity is, it's an opportunity for you to just embrace and to really hear the story of what's going on and to figure out what you want to do in life. And not that that's all going to happen in the context of a 1 or 2 year internship as a student news correspondent, but it sets you up for a path of being able to do that more successfully, I think. And so, between the experience and the opportunities to talk about stories, which are so critical to our communities, I think it's, even if it's not what you end up doing, it's something that a student should try and just give it a shot.
Dave, let me add one more major benefit that I see of participation, and that is that the student journalism program does provide an opportunity for minorities, people who are under or not represented in the media today, to have their voice heard. We were very proud at DoorCountyDailyNews.com to have a Hispanic young woman serve as a student correspondent for the last 3 years. She's gone on to college and intends to go to law school. But we are very successfully working right now with a Hispanic station in the Madison market, and iHeartRadio is reaching out into the Black community in the city of Milwaukee right now, recruiting candidates. So I think that we will be very soon capable to announce that we've got Hispanic and people of color participating in the program, giving them an opportunity to provide voice in the media to an underrepresented component of society.
Thanks for adding that, Roger. And for those who might be interested in getting involved in the program or sharing the program with others, how can they do that? And I can help you out a little here, Roger, if need be. But how do they get involved?
The WIPPS website has a link to an application. The journalism program functions with media partners in as many markets as we can establish. However, if a student has got an interest and fills out the application, we will absolutely guarantee that effort will be made to find a media partner, a newspaper or radio station in the community from which the student of interest is located. The program is right now functioning with a number of newspaper and radio station partners. It's certainly growing with many more that are in the process of getting their corporate approval and finding how they can finance within their own companies the student journalism program. But it's starting to gain momentum, and I'm especially proud of being able to include representatives of the Black and Hispanic communities. The website is the point of entry, and we will follow up from there and make it a simple 2 or 3 click process for students who are interested to find out everything they need.
Yep. So you can access that at wipps.org and go to the program tab, and there you find the student journalism homepage. So we welcome any student to apply, and we are looking for students in grades 9 through 12 in high school. So we'd love to have you join up. Unfortunately, we're out of time. And I understand that, Julie, you have a golf match you got to get to. So we want to make sure we get you there on time. And thank you so much to all 3 of you, Roger, Matt, Julia. It's been really a pleasure. And we want to apologize to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Once again, we're out of time, and so we'll have to postpone our conversation until next week. So apologize. Dave, any parting thoughts?
You know, I just one quick comment for Roger. Roger, I don't know if you know this, but I used to do some stand-up comedy when I was a younger guy. As part of my regular routine, I used to tell some jokes about radio, but I stopped doing it because the reception was always pretty poor. Just saying.
Oh my gosh.
Sienna,
Okay.
had you engaged in that attempt at humor back in 1984 when you were on my radio stations running ads promoting your candidacy for the state legislature, the history of the state of Wisconsin would be dramatically different. We could
Be
talking
completely different.
to
Yeah.
Governor Dave Anderson by now.
Well, thank goodness that that didn't work out, because otherwise we wouldn't have a second ball guy for the show. So anyway, we really appreciate all three of you, Dave. It's great as usual to see you. Next week, we're going to be off. You know, we decided we didn't take Labor Day week off, so we're going to take next week off. So we'll see you in 2 weeks on Two Ball Guys, Friday at noon. Look forward to that. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.